I just want to let you guys know that I don't make these videos because I'm trying to score some points with God or with people. And I most certainly don't do it for the money. But your channel's monetized. You're doing it for the money. Listen, what happened is YouTube started putting commercials on channels of people, whether they liked it or not, without approval. YouTube never came and got my approval that they could commercialize my channel. It was something they started doing. And I noticed this at the beginning of this year, that they were doing that. Yeah, well, I noticed there was commercials on my channel because, you know, if I went to an old video to check something out and it's playing a commercial, I'm like, how'd that get there? Well, they were commercializing. And then they sent notices to people that had YouTube channels that they were doing that with, I guess, selected channels that they chose. But anyway, so they chose mine to put commercials on. And I'm like, they're putting commercials on my channel? Then why don't I just open up my monetization so that at least if they're doing commercials anyway, maybe they should give me something for that. And so far within, what was it? Not this year, 2022. So from 2022, now almost all the way through 2023, they sent me $100 for all of that time. So of course I'm not in it for the money. Never was. I don't know how people make money on YouTube unless they're doing, maybe got over 1 million of subscribers and people watch those commercials that are on the channels. But anyway, I'm not trying to score points with God when I do these videos or make something out of myself. I just like to share things through inspiration from God, and it seems to help people. And I know when I see things in Scripture, it helps me to understand, you know, the depth and wisdom of God in so many different ways. Instead of looking at the book and reading this book in a shallow way, I want to understand the spirit behind every letter, every word, every number. Because there's certainly a lot of numbers in the Bible, but there's lots of letters and words as well. Here's some words for you. Genesis chapter 4, verse 25. No, excuse me. I jumped way too far ahead. I wasn't even going there. Genesis chapter 4, verse 1. Now Adam knew Eve his wife, and she conceived and bore Cain, saying, I have gotten a man with the help of the Lord, or with the help of Yahweh. Cain, with the help of Yahweh. When she bore Cain, it says she conceived and bore Cain, saying. So basically the sentence that she said when she bore Cain was what Cain's name ended up being. You understand? She said a word that had meaning. She said something that had meaning. So she calls out, when it says, I have gotten a man with the help of the Lord. Gotten is kona in Hebrew. It means to get or acquire. To get or acquire. Kona, she said when she gave birth to Cain. Kona. Meaning I have acquired a son. Right? A man. Ish. She says, I have acquired a man. Ish. With the help of the Lord. So she bore who? Cain. And Cain is pronounced Kayan. Kayan in Hebrew. It has the Q-A-Y-A, or Q-A-Y-I-N. Kayin. So when she spoke Kona, Q-A-N-A-H, Kona, Cain's name was Kayin. So that is, his name has the same meaning as Kona. to acquire or get. So that was his name, acquired. I acquired. I got. I did it, right? But Eve didn't say she did it. She said she did it. She acquired with the help of Yahweh. With the help of Yahweh. That's how she acquired the son. So she didn't say, look I did this with my own strength, will, and power. It was through the help of Yahweh. And you know the story, how Cain and Abel, they bring offerings to God. And Cain brings the works of his hands, the things that he produced in the fields, digging and sweating and acquiring. See, he's always acquiring because he lives by his name, to acquire, to get, acquire or get. Do you understand when a parent gives a child a name, that name is who they be? You know, and it's interesting when you look up the meaning of people's names, it kind of seems like it follows them. And so she called out something at Cain's birth that was stuck to him, right? And so he was acquiring, he was getting, he was doing the works of it from the ground. He brought offerings to God, to Yahweh, through the works of his hands. An offering of the fruit of the ground. And in the course time of Genesis chapter 4, verse 3, in the course of time, Cain brought to Yahweh an offering of the fruit of the ground. See, the produce, that's what fruit means, the produce of the ground. Because Cain dug, he got the soil prepared, he watered, he planted seeds, and the next thing you know, the ground produces, right? So it produces something. It doesn't just mean fruit. Fruit of the ground means the product, right? And Abel, in verse 4, brought, and Abel also brought. So they both bring an offering to the Lord. Abel brings the firstborn of his flock. The firstborn of his flock and their fat portions. And Yahweh had regard for Abel and his offering. Yahweh had regard, or in Hebrew it would be he had sha'ah. Sha'ah. It means he gazed. He paid attention to the offering of Abel. In other words, Abel's offering caught his attention. Yahweh was drawn to the offering of Abel. They both brought offerings. Cain's must have been very interesting. Cain being the firstborn of the two. The firstborn Cain brings the works of his hands. His hard sweat, blood and tears perhaps, producing these fine crops. Look at this. Look at this. I give you the finest of my crops. And Abel brings a fat cheleb. In Hebrew, Caleb. Actually, Caleb is how it would be pronounced. And it means fat. So he bought a little fat one. A fat one, of which was the firstborn of the flock. Right? And something draws Yahweh's attention to what Abel had to offer. It's like Cain has his stuff there, and Yahweh's not looking at Cain's offering. He's looking very intensely. That's what it means. That's what this word sha'ah means in Hebrew. Yahweh was really, really, really looking at what Abel had brought him. There's just something about that offering. But for Cain and his offering, he had no regard. Meaning, he wasn't paying attention to that one. Something about Abel's offering may God pay attention to what Abel brought. Now, I'm sure if Cain went alone and offered something to Yahweh, and Abel wasn't around, Yahweh may have gazed or looked intensely, paid attention to what Cain was offering, because he needed to figure out why this. What was it, Cain? What is it about this you want me to pay attention to? What is it? There's something about what you are offering me. Every little detail of it. There's intention behind that. So if there's intention behind what Cain was offering, then what Cain would be hoping is that Yahweh would be paying attention to his offering. Because Cain had intention, so he's hoping that in that tension, that Yahweh would respond by paying attention, right? Putting tension, intensity into what Cain had offered. It has the word tense in there, you guys. And for Cain and his offering, he had no regard, so Cain was very angry and his face fell, meaning his countenance changed. You could see a disturbance in the look of Cain. There was no questioning that Cain was upset. You could see it. You look at him and now, oh, this guy, he is mad. He is angry. And the Lord says, Yahweh says to Cain, why are you angry? And why has your face fallen? Why are you angry? And why has your face fallen? Didn't say that Yahweh was angry at Cain's offering. It just said that Yahweh paid attention to Abel's. It's like Cain's offering didn't even exist because, shoom, Cain brought his offering first, and I'm sure Yahweh's looking at it, but here comes Abel, and there's something about that offering that Yahweh paid attention. His intensity was just put onto this, right? He was paying attention to what Abel had intentionally offered. Both made an offering with intention. And Yahweh paid his attention to what Abel brought. And that's why Cain was angry and his face fell, and Yahweh says, why are you angry, and why has your face fallen? If you do well, will you not be accepted? And if you do not do well, sin is crouching at the door, and its desire is for you, but you must rule over it. This word for rule is mashal in Hebrew. It means have dominion over it. And you know, you can see this in two different ways. Cain, sin is crouching at your door. You better take dominion over it. You'll do well. If you want to do well. Isn't that a good thing? Will you not be accepted? You'll be accepted by him. You're accepted if you're doing well, Cain. But you brought an offering for something. But if you do well, you'll be accepted, right? But you got sin crouching at the door. You got sin crouching at your door. But here's the interesting thing, you guys, about this word sin. It is the word chata-ah. And it's pronounced kata-ah. C-H-A-T-T-A apostrophe, a little apostrophe looking something, A-H. Kata-ah is how it's pronounced. This word is used 294 times in Hebrew, in the Old Testament, or in the Hebrew Scriptures. And it's the word for sin. But it is also the word for sin offering. So it can be used for sin, but it can also be used for sin offering. Here's what's amazing. Yes, sin is crouching at your door, Cain, but at the same time, there is a sin offering. There is a sin offering. And do you know that's what Abel is bringing me? Abel brought sin offering. Where you are bringing something of the work of your hands. Look at what I have done. You're glorifying yourself, Cain. You're showing me, look at what I have done for you, when Abel is bringing a sin offering, because Abel just understands something. He understands we were born into sin. I, Abel, was brought into sin, and there is nothing I can bring to God except for a sin offering. And the sin offering is not from the work of my hands. It's from the life of someone else that's innocent and is paying for my debt. And it gave its life for my debt. It shed its blood because of me. Oh. See, that's not what Cain, that wasn't even Cain's intention. He was trying to show Yahweh, look at what I've done. And this guy, Abel, his brother, does something else. And it made Yahweh pay attention to what he brought him? To his sacrifice? What about the sacrifice of the works of my hands? My brother brings you the life of someone else. My brother took a life and is offering that to you. He killed an innocent creature. I mean, you got to imagine what Cain's head must have been like, but also, if you can just see the spirit, the amazing wisdom of Abel. You know, your emotions totally understand what Cain's going through, but there's something deep in your spirit that totally understands what Abel was doing. You know, that's the difference between your soul and your spirit. Abel brought something that only the Spirit of God could lead him to bringing, to help him understand what he was bringing, what he was offering. But Cain was all emotions. Cain was into the emotional, carnal realm, because he was showing God, look at, man, I've been doing stuff. I've been working. I've been sweating. I've been toiling. Religion. Cain brought religion. Abel brought relationship. There's a difference. There's so much more to this story. Because Cain kills his brother. And the voice of his brother's blood cries to Yahweh from the ground. And now, Cain, you are, verse 11 of Genesis 4, you are cursed from the ground, which has opened its mouth to receive your brother's blood from your hand. And now when you work the ground, it's not going to longer yield to you its strength. Meaning Cain cannot get everything he needs nutritionally for his body, for his health. He can't get all of the nutrition from the ground. So what he has to do to get all the nutrients is he has to work harder even, so that he can probably eat double or 3 times the amount of what he needs to get everything that he needs in his body, because his body is, you know, growing old and aging and all that because of what happened with his father and his mother. They brought sin into the world, and they cursed the world. They cursed the ground, they cursed everything. And we receive the curse. And so because of the curse, Cain's got to eat it, you know, like everybody else. We eat. You try going hungry. Now this guy, the ground's cursed. Forever cursed because of what has happened with him. And his brother's blood cries out from the ground. And I can't even try to begin to explain that one to you, because I think I need to meditate for a very long time to understand those words. And when you work the ground, it shall no longer yield to you its strength. You shall be a fugitive and a wanderer on the earth. A fugitive is nuah in Hebrew. Nuah, it means to tremble and be unstable. And a wanderer is the Hebrew word nud, N-U-D, nud, like where we get the word nude, N-U-D-E. Interesting, right? This wanderer, nude, what, kind of like being naked and exposed, but it means in Hebrew to move to and fro, meaning Cain has to keep on the move because he worked this area and it gave him hardly anything. So now he has to work the next area and it's going to hardly give him anything. Everywhere he goes, he's going to work his butt off and receive just a little bit from what he's worked for. A couple little things grew. I worked this entire field and I got this from it. Yes, Cain, that's your brother's blood crying out from the ground. You spilled your brother's blood on the ground, and that ground is not satisfied with that sacrifice. That ground gulped down that blood. It had to open its mouth for that blood, that sacrifice. You sacrificed your brother? Why didn't you just sacrifice yourself, Cain? You are the firstborn. How about give God a first? You want to sacrifice blood? Abel sacrificed blood, so watch this. I'll sacrifice blood too. Because in verse 8 of Genesis 4 says that Cain spoke to his brother Abel, and when they were in the field, what did he tell his brother? He spoke to his brother Abel. Hey, Abel, come here. I want to show you something. Come check it out. Check it out. So his brother's following him. What, bro? What do you got, brother? What do you want to show me? Come on, come here. Look. Come over here. Okay. Come out in the field. So they're covered, so that nobody else can see, just in case there's other eyes. Maybe their dad and mom are watching, but if they go into the field, oh, we can't see our kids anymore. They must be having fun. They must be playing. Hope one of them doesn't get lost. Especially Abel, he's our youngest. Cain, take care of your brother. Hope you're watching over your brother, they're thinking. And again, Cain and Abel, as two brothers, they go and they disappear into the field. Adam and Eve had no idea what was just about to happen, you guys. They had these sons, and they had no idea. Those two that were going out to the field together. Hey, Cain. Because it says, Cain spoke to Abel, his brother. And just before he spoke to Abel, his brother, Yahweh, just before, the verse before, Genesis 4:7, Yahweh says, if you do well, won't you be accepted? And Cain's thinking, do well? Do well? Well, Abel did well, and he shed blood. So I wonder if I'll do well if I shed blood. I'll give Yahweh something that'll blow his mind away. So Abel goes and speaks to his brother. Come on. Or Cain. Cain goes and speaks to his brother Abel and says, Abel, come here. Come here, I want to show you something. What's that? What, Cain? Come here, check it out. And Adam and Eve, they see their son just go disappear into the field together. Brothers that love each other, right? And when they were in the field, Cain rose up against his brother Abel and killed him. He killed his brother, the second-born. And he shed blood. because Yahweh says, what have you done? The voice of your brother's blood is crying to me from the ground. What have you done? But before he says that, he says to Cain, where is your brother Abel? And Cain says, I don't know. Am I my brother's keeper? And Yahweh says, what have you done? The voice of your brother's blood is crying to me from the ground. And now you are cursed. It's difficult when you read something like that and you are an empath like me. So you can sense the emotion that's involved in this and the seriousness of it. And I'm kind of like feeling Yahweh. And then I also am feeling Cain as well, what's going on inwardly, a little bit of it anyway. And it really affects me. Because that's how I read the Bible. But that's not how I always read the Bible. I read the Bible through the eyes of Cain. For so many years of my life. And if you understand this, because you kind of come from a similar background as me, you'll see what I'm about. You'll get it. You'll get what I want to share is that you know, I was in religion for 30 years, and it was, you know, read the Bible, read the Bible, read the Bible. And we even had our own special Bible, us Jehovah's Witnesses. Ours was the #1 translation ever. We were the only ones that had the correct Bible translation, and everybody else's was false and was evil, pretty much. I mean, evil because it didn't have the name of Yahweh or Jehovah restored into it, like the Jehovah's Witnesses Bible did. Jehovah's all over the place in the Old and New Testament. And that is so important to them that they have that name pronunciation right, unlike Christendom, who has the word Lord in all caps put in there. But the Jehovah's Witnesses, no way. They got the name Jehovah put in their Bibles, and they even added more of it to the New Testament just to say, aha, look at that. Because Jehovah wasn't in the New Testament, but they put it in, assert it in there to show that it belongs there. And they boast about knowing Jehovah God. We know Jehovah. We know Jehovah, and we read the Bible. And the Bible says Jehovah wants works. And in the Old Testament, he wants works, but even in the New Testament, because Jehovah's still in our New Testament, Jehovah says through James that faith without works is dead. And so we will show our faith by showing through what we do, our works, that we actually have faith. And we belong to a faith. And we belong to the correct faith. How can we not have faith? Because we are in the correct faith. What faith are you? Oh, I'm a Baptist. What faith are you? Oh, I'm a Lutheran. I'm a Catholic. I'm a Mormon. What faith are you? I'm a Muslim. But what faith are you? I'm a Jehovah's Witness. That's what faith I am. And because I have that faith, I will work for it. I will prove something to God and to mankind. I will prove to God that his word means something to me because my faith says so. My faith, being led by these men of God that have been given the wisdom of God to share with us the spiritual food of God so we can receive and we can give it out to others. Because these men are the leaders of this faith of mine. And we will bring to God by giving our leaders. We give to our leaders who give in return the information back to God. They are our mediators. We give to them the works of our hands. This is how many hours we have served in working for God in this organizational faith. Here is how much literature we have placed into the hands of others as well. 1 magazine, 10 magazines, 20 magazines, 50 magazines. I got 100. I got 10 hours, I got 12 hours, I got 15 hours, I got 30 hours. I was out for 60 hours serving you this month. There is my offering, God. Because I see the Bible through the eyes of Cain, not through the eyes of Abel. But your eyes are on the sacrifice of Abel, what he brought to you. You want blood. Okay, well, how about this? In our religion, we'll throw in the blood of Jesus. And our Jesus isn't the firstborn. Our Jesus is the secondborn. Like Abel. Your Jesus is the secondborn? Well, yes. We call him the firstborn, but he's actually the secondborn. How's that? Well, the firstborn Jesus would be the original Jesus. The real Jesus. The secondborn Jesus is not the firstborn Jesus. That secondborn Jesus looks like the real born, the firstborn, but it's different. See, the firstborn Jesus is the Son of God. Meaning that Son has the same DNA as his Father. But the secondborn Jesus You understand I'm talking about the idea of a Jesus. Their idea is not who Jesus is, because Jesus is firstborn. No man was ever born God on earth. He was the only one to come in the full deity and nature of his Father and still wear human flesh on the outside. But this other Jesus that came, all right, he came from a heavenly realm, so what do we call him? Let's see, he'll come in the voice of Michael the Archangel someday. It says he comes in the cry of the voice of Michael the Archangel. Let's call him Michael. As if Jesus is saying, I, as Michael, say, here I come. See the voice of the archangel? No, they don't see that the voice of the archangel is shouting out the arrival of the real Jesus, the firstborn, the only one that was born in the full deity and nature of God, wrapped in human flesh. Just like when you wrap a present, you unwrap that present, that is God inside of that flesh. Pretty powerful things, you guys, to understand in the scriptures. And I was in a religion that boasted of how it knew God better than everyone else because they knew the pronunciation of that name, and they had men that were leading them to the waters of life of truth. And just like Cain, let's work and offer that sacrifice to God. And I came out of a religion here in America that is full of works, yet they don't know Jesus, and they can't offer an offering like Abel because they don't know Jesus. They don't know his heart. They don't know who he is. But Abel brought something that caught the attention of Yahweh. And Cain brings exactly what people like the Jehovah's Witnesses and many others are still bringing to God today. Look at what I have done for you. Lord, Lord. Yahweh, Yahweh. Jesus, Jesus. Adonai, Adonai. Curios, Curios. Yeshua. Yeshua. You can call him all the fancy stuff you want. And you can try to pronounce that name right. Jehovah. Yahweh. Whatever you want to say. All of that performance stuff, if you don't know his heart, which is in his son, which if his son is in you, you would know him. And through knowledge, you could get to know and understand things about him and stories and things, how they fit together like puzzle pieces. But there's just something in you that just knows him. And Abel just knew him. But Cain had a different concept. a different understanding. A God that demanded works. Because when Cain's parents were naked, found naked, what did they do? They got busy sewing fig leaves to cover up that nakedness. Sewing, 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 working, 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 working. We will cover up this nakedness through the works of our hands. But Abel understood, unlike Cain, that God clothed his parents. Genesis chapter 3 verse 21. And Yahweh Elohim made for Adam and his Isha garments of skins and clothed them. Something had to die to cover up Adam and Eve's nakedness. Something that wasn't the work of their hands, but the life of someone else. And in our case, the life of someone else was the firstborn of God. Because he was the first one to come into the very nature of God, wrapped like a present in human flesh. And under that wrapping is God. God had a baby in his very own nature. And that baby gave his very own life when he became a full-grown, ripe fruit. And here is the first fruit, fully grown and ripe and mature. An offering that was pleasant because it caught the attention of his Father. And this offering is given for all who want to partake, because this offering does not run out. And that's it. You guys have a great one. Thank you for watching. Thank you. Trust in Jesus. And trust in his grace that he is the only offering that you need. And don't ever water down that offering with the works of your hands. Do what Paul does. Believe how Paul believes. Think in this way. In 1 Corinthians chapter 15, verse 10. But by the grace of God, I am what I am. And his grace toward me was not in vain. Meaning God didn't grace me so I could just sit around. He didn't grace me to get off my butt and do like Cain. No. He graced me to see his word with the eyes of Abel. So his grace was not in vain, meaning his grace didn't come to me for no reason at all. God didn't pour me with his grace, fill me up so I could just sit there. No, it wasn't in vain. On the contrary, I worked harder than any of them, though it was not I, but the grace of God that is with me. It was all because of the grace of God that caused me to work harder than any of them. Oh, so if I see the word with the eyes of Abel, how could Abel dare say that he worked harder than his brother Cain? Because if Paul's seeing with the eyes of Abel, not the eyes of Cain, Paul's saying, I worked harder than Cain. I worked harder than all the others. How? How could Abel say to his brother, I worked harder than you? I'm going to tell you why. Because Abel had to be humble. Abel had to be real with himself and introspect and understand the seriousness of this sin thing that entered into him at birth. And to be cleansed of this sin thing, forgiven. He knew he couldn't work his way out of it. But something caused Abel to understand that his life had been affected by this. So if his life was affected, then it's only life that can appease this. And how do you do that? Abel didn't even say, let me offer up myself, as some people think they're doing. I'll just sacrifice me. I've been there. I thought if I sacrificed myself, I would finally appease that God, because I knew that Cain stuff wasn't working, and that's what I had been offering all my life. So then I even tried, I'll offer myself. Abel didn't do that one, though. Abel didn't do that. His brother did it. His brother says, I'll offer up my brother. How about that? You want blood? I'll give blood. I'll offer up my brother. Huh? That dude that lives by grace, I'll offer him, because he's a fool. He thinks grace, you don't have to do nothing. Even Paul says, I worked harder than them all, but Paul speaks about grace, something that other people don't understand about grace. Paul got it. The others say you use grace for licentiousness. You use grace for an excuse to sin. No, they don't understand I use grace as an excuse from sin. That it's only by his grace that I am cleansed from this awful thing that Abel knew he was born into, and I know I was born into, and the only offering I can offer up is the life of someone else, because mine's not even enough, so I offer up you, Lord Jesus, my sacrifice, God himself, wrapped in flesh. That is the greatest sacrifice of all. That's all I can offer. But you still think God's paying attention to your sacrifice, the sacrifice of Cain, when really his intention is on yours because you just offered him his very son. And that's that. All right, you guys, I love y'all. God bless y'all. Have a great one. And we will talk again.